wonderful to be in this beautiful church on the Green and in Norwich. And I spent some time here. I was a Montgomery Fellow after I left the governorship. And for the first time in my life, I got a mansion, as Vermont doesn't have a governor's mansion. And I had a very interesting and wonderful year spent here. And so I also, of course, as you mentioned, I was married to John Hennessy, who passed away just about a year ago, and lived at Kendall, and got to know many wonderful people at Kendall, and I suspect some of you may have made it here tonight. And I probably couldn't have written this book without John. He read most of it, except for a few little bits and pieces here, which I changed lately through the editorial process. But he was very encouraging. And it was both of our second marriage. John had been married to Jean Hennessy, who many of you also must know. And when people ask me why did we get married, well, he met two important criteria. He was a feminist and a Democrat. So this book contains both poetry and prose, and it's a different book from what I've written before, as you just heard them listed. I mean, the other books I've written were mostly policy books. And my first book, though, Living a Political Life, is somewhat personal. But this book, Coming of Age, My Journey to the 80s, is very personal. So much so that I got very nervous before it came out. I thought, what have I done? But it's interesting that the response has been very enthusiastic, and people identify with bits and pieces of it. I mentioned 2 silver tea sets that I had to figure out what to do with when we were downsizing. One was in the laundry room, tarnished beyond redemption. And a woman came up to me and said, I have a tea set like that. So you don't know what will strike people as familiar. But I write in a different way. Among my titles is a new one called Poet. So I've been writing serious poetry for several years now. I wrote poetry off and on throughout my life, but nothing ever to be published. And maybe this shouldn't be published, but it's up to you to figure that out. But I'm writing in a more introspective way and in a more open way. You know, when you're in public life, you have to be careful what you say and, of course, what you do. And you sort of screen your words through a sieve and try to keep out anything that might get you into trouble or get anybody else into trouble, for that matter. Well, now, at my age of 85, I don't have to be careful anymore. And I can say pretty much, I mean, there's still some censoring going on, as we all do with our lives, but much less so. I feel a certain liberty, a certain freedom to really explore how I feel, how I think, and how it feels to get old. It's still hard to say I'm an old woman, but I can't deny it. And maybe we shouldn't be embarrassed about being old. Maybe we should relish this stage of our life. Well, I'll read some things, and then we'll have time for questions or comments. The first poem I'll read is no longer. No longer will we make love before breakfast. No longer will I dream of seeing New Zealand or the Cape of Good Hope or bears in the wild. No longer will I say yes more than no. No longer will danger sparkle and safety look dull. No longer will I look at my body without comparison between who I was and who I have become, blaming the light for the difference. No longer can I toss my hair over my face and count 100 strokes. No longer can I do without night cream and day cream, slathering on ounce after ounce. No longer can I be comfortable sitting in my chair reading for hours without getting up to stretch my arms and legs. No longer can I walk without looking down at my feet to avoid mean cracks and malicious bumps. No longer can I skip downstairs like a girl flying without feeling a thing. No longer can I approach the precipice without swaying against my will. No longer do I think ahead of where I will be in 10 years or 20 or more. Now I think in ones or twos or threes, long enough to still hunger for the food of life. No longer do I wish for the next day or the next year to come quickly like I did the year I turned 10. I want the days to saunter like a leisurely museum stroller who stops now and then to gaze and get closer to the canvas to see the brushstrokes, and then steps back for the long view before moving on. This is a prose piece, which I'll skip around a little bit because it's quite long. It's about the red chairs. The year I turned 80, the color red invaded my palate. I bought a new red Prius, thinking it might be my last car. Last car sounds like last breath, and I wanted to go out in a blast. If I hadn't worried about the wind further destroying my hair, my eyes, my ears, I would have gone for a convertible. I had owned my old Prius for 9 years. It was beige, and it blended silently in with the other cars in the parking lot. Sometimes it took me several panicked minutes, it has to be here somewhere, to find it in the rows of vehicles. As I pushed my cumbersome shopping cart, I hoped no one would notice that I was lost, or rather that my car was lost. My red car would be different, on the alert, happily signaling to me even from a distance. My new Prius was the color of the year, Barcelona red. The marketing people had gotten it right. Not only did the name feel beautiful on the tongue, but Barcelona red also evoked sunlit images of the time my second husband, John, and I visited Spain. The deep, vibrant red sparkled on the car lot. It was a young color. It had a touch of daring to it. I once had read that red cars are picked up more often for speeding than other colors. I was ready to take the risk. The move to Wake Robin, I think most of you know Wake Robin is similar to Kendall. It's a continuing care community. We had a plan for our old age. Our children would not be burdened when we reached the dreaded age of dependence. If one of us died first, the other would not have to cope alone. The cottage was the most attractive one on campus. I'm trying to skip around, which doesn't always work. But we decided we still had a condo in Burlington, and so we needed some furniture for the new, what they call the cottage. We're Robin, and we wanted some comfortable chairs. And we were looking over swatches of material. I didn't want leather. Perhaps leather was a lifetime purchase, and we did not have a lifetime. We did not inquire about warranties. We looked through books of swatches, lots of colors, and a choice of fabric. I spotted a bright red square and stopped. It leapt up at me. I asked John, could we be bold and choose red? Why not? He replied with his agreeable smile. I tried to picture the red chairs in our new living room. No question they would be bright. No question they would stand out. They would be contemporary. We would not be living in the past, surrounded only by possessions each of us had accumulated over 50 years. Our retirement home would be a sharp departure from that of the couple who had occupied it before us and had just been moved to assisted living. We were the young couple moving in. I pushed away the questions. When would it be our turn? When would we have to move out to assisted living or skilled nursing in the Linden building? It had been hard for the other couple to leave, but they left nothing behind, and I was glad. Let's go for the red chairs, John and I agreed. The saleswoman was surprised, and I was pleased to see her reaction. We were not the beige, brown, or black chair couple she had expected. Months went by waiting for the chairs, and I began to have second thoughts. Would they work as I had anticipated, or would they be a disaster? Had we decided too quickly? Why hadn't I deliberated longer, given darker colors a chance? When the chairs arrived, shrink-wrapped in heavy plastic, the two men who unloaded them had to use a knife to release them from bondage. There they stood, two solid walls of red. They're so big, I exclaimed. They look different in the showroom. My husband was dismayed. We tried placing one chair in the living room and the other in the study. Better, but not right. My stepdaughter came to fix the computer and sat in one of the chairs. I like them, they're comfortable. Really? I questioned. John and I became obsessed with the red chairs. We talked about them over breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I would take a look at them before going to bed and first thing in the morning in case they looked any better. They didn't. Let's stop talking about the chairs, John said as his insomnia weakened him. Yes, we won't talk about them anymore, I agreed, but it was hard. I called the furniture store to ask if we could return them. The owner was properly dismayed. He had never sold red chairs. He was polite and didn't want to displease a customer, but clearly he was upset. Keep them until Monday and then tell me what you think, he suggested. The next day I placed a square black pillow with a brilliant red flower leaping on the edges in the corner of our beige couch. My son Daniel had given it to us as a housewarming gift. It lifted the couch out of its neutrality and tied it to the red chairs, a sudden improvement. My son Adam came to dinner and my friend Veronica stopped by. My son Adam said, 2 thumbs up, he said. If you don't like the color, you can get slipcovers. His wife had done that with a cat-scratched couch. True, but why slip-covered new chairs? I looked at the chairs once more. I asked myself whether I could ever own them. Would I feel comfortable? Or would they always jolt me or make me jumpy, on edge? Why hadn't I chosen the light, neutral textures with which I had surrounded myself in the past? Silent, relaxing colors that made the living room a calm refuge from the harsh and noisy world outside. Part of me, I realized, no longer wanted a refuge. I wanted to bring life inside, not leave it at the door. And the red chairs did exactly that. They were loud, they were vivid. Day by day, I began to see that they had precisely what I had wanted, brilliance. One bright morning, my husband and I arrived at the same decision. Let's keep them. This is a short essay. It's called I Am Not Old. I could be the oldest person in the audience, but so what? My age drops to the floor and I step on it with my dancing feet. Mavis Staples is shaped like a muffin, dressed in a swishy black top and matching and swinging black silk pants. Her hair is like a blonde bowl, it sparkles. She is escorted on stage by the hand of a dark-suited assistant. She needs help, but when the band starts to jive, she rolls across the stage like a loose marble. Her shoulders pump up and down to the music, her arms are swinging, and her feet kick off gravity. Then she opens her mouth and out it comes, a powerful voice that blasts into the crowd. She's got it, they clap. She's still got it. How old is she? I asked the woman sitting next to me, who seems to know all the songs. I don't know, she replies. I guess. Mavis tells the audience that the Staples singers have been singing for 65 years. Let's see, 80 or 85 maybe? I'm so excited, Mavis exclaims more than once between songs. She is outrageously happy. Then she pauses, spotting a familiar face in the audience, and reaches down. He jumps on the stage, tall, dressed in white pants and jacket, with lanky, long hair. He turns to her side and hugs her. They sing a song or two together, and then they dance. Did you see me dance? She coquettishly asks the audience. I almost fell down, but he held me up. I clap with the crowd, moving my feet and shoulders, trying to keep up. The crowd hoots and hollers. I release my voice. I shout, surprising myself. When the bass guitarist has a solo, he blends his body in like a straw. He holds his instrument in a lover's embrace. He makes it sing in a high-pitched voice, a voice so beautiful, so plaintive, like the singing of a loon. The drummer has his turn. He builds up the sound to a mad tempo, as jazz drummers do. But this time, perhaps because his hair is white, I pound the drums with him. I allow myself to drum the hell out of those drums. It feels so good. I am not old. This is a poem called I Love You. I loved you when you did the dishes. I cooked, you did the dishes. Did I love you for that? I listened to the distant clattering in the kitchen while I sat in my chair reading the newspaper. We shared most tasks then, but you did the driving and I could sit still by your side with only a rare glance in the rearview mirror to check if it was safe to pass. Now I do everything, cook and wash the pots and meet the dishwasher's greedy demands. I made the bed, which you once made when we slept together. I push your wheelchair and straighten my back, not letting it sink into a stoop before it's time. I feel my muscles tighten up the incline. I wish you could feel it too from your glued position. You need me now to move in any direction, up and down and around corners, without bumping into things like winter boots thrown casually on the floor. I take the lead, pulling you out of yourself and into the world I inhabit. You visit me from time to time like you used to do when you did the dishes and the counters always needed wiping. This evening is better than this morning when you berated yourself for growing old. What can I do, you ask, pleading with yourself? I whispered, nothing. Evenings we meet on the sofa and talk about a story in the New York Times or a scene from the evening news. We are same-minded again. The world is spinning crazily out of its orbit. We shake our heads from side to side in rhythmic disbelief. I reach for your still hand, cover it with mine, and keep it there. This is another chapter which needs some editing, but I'll read as much as I can. It's called Downsizing. I hear murmurs. I harbor a sentimental longing for a homestead, a place where each generation has written their births and deaths in the family Bible, kept in a safe place. But World War II scattered us about to England, to Israel, and to America in search of safety. That is why I cannot dispose of my mother's good white tablecloths with matching initialed napkins, or get rid of Aunt Bert's Rosenthal gold-edged teacups and flowered dessert plates. They are my past. As I pack them up, I carefully hold a cup in my hand and examine this painted rose scene on the side. Why do I not use my good dishes? What am I saving them for? I vow that I will use them at Wake Robin, a place where private dinner parties no longer happen. And when John and I eat dinner at home, I will take out 2 of the white gold-rimmed dishes my first husband and I carefully selected before our wedding. My mother's good silver will come out too, whether it's polished or not. I walked through the condo and surveyed the magnitude of the moving job ahead. Books and more books, boxes and boxes of stored paper, stacks of writings that someday may be discovered by one of our children and assembled into another book, or provide material for a historian. Photographs of children, of me with dignitaries, of me at various stages of my public life. Fly fishing, signing bills, tapping the first maple tree, standing in the center of a group of women, of a group of children, of a group of men. The books are the hardest part to sort out. I've been thrilled to read the Alexandria Quartet by Lawrence Durrell when everyone was talking about it in the 1970s. I talk about some of the books. Do I keep them or give them away? Will the library even take some of the books? The closets are scrunched with clothes from 4 seasons and several lifetimes. I'm not ready to give away the expensive silk suit I wore at Peter and Lisa's wedding 23 years ago. I've worn it only once since the wedding, but still, it costs so much, it has to stay. The same thinking prevents me from disposing of the ice blue silk suit I wore for my swearing in as ambassador to Switzerland. I was pleased that my elegant attire could equal the ornate gold-trimmed room of the State Department. I'm just skipping. So much of what we decide to keep is built on someday. Someday we might need it. Someday we would wish we had kept it. Someday is shorter than it used to be. The word itself has shrunk. If someday hasn't happened by now, I have to accept that it is not likely that it will. If I haven't looked through my library of big, beautiful art books in the last 10 years, I probably won't take them down from the shelf in the next 5 or whatever time it was left. Something that no one wants, but I can't give away. I have 2 silver tea sets. One belonged to my mother and the other to my Aunt Bet. Every middle-class European bride once was given such a set as a wedding present. My mother once confessed to me with an unusual note of jealousy in her voice that her older sister, Bert's set was genuine silver, while hers was plated. I can only see my Aunt Bert slowly pouring from it, careful not to spill a drop on the crisp white stitched tablecloth, mixing the desired amount of tea in hot water, strong or weak. Now both sets are more black than silver, as if in mourning for their neglect. And this is towards the end, where I've dealt with all those difficult decisions, which I'm sure many of you went through, what to keep, what to toss away, what to give to whom, and it's not easy. My possessions are moved out in separate brigades. 3 cars and 6 Burlington Library volunteers arrive on schedule one morning to take away all the box books. First Adam and then Daniel help me bring things to the synagogue. Peter brings things to the Goodwill. My friends Nancy and Peter distribute 5 filing cabinets and a set of bookcases. I arrange for a rug, art books, and coffee table to be brought to my daughter Julia in Brooklyn, the owner of a second-hand furniture company comes. And then, finally, I call, as the condo undresses itself, I call 1-800-JUNK. We take everything, the man on the phone says. Anything, everything, I repeat, anything. 2 medium-sized trucks pull in and stop in front of the garage. I give them everything that is left: flower pots, rakes, old pictures, old pots and pans. You sure you want to give us this? One of the men is holding up a plaster flamenco figure I made when I was taking a sculpture class as a new bride. I am ruthless. Yes, take it. Take everything, I repeat, feeling a sudden surge of fierce happiness. The driver is having a great time. He finds a silver wig in the trash and puts it on. One Halloween, I wore it for fun at a staff meeting at the Department of Education in Washington. He finds another treasure, a gold cardboard quarum studded with glass diamonds, and balances it on top of the sparkling wig. He waves to me from inside the truck, one leg hooked over the wooden side panel. He looks hilarious. I laugh and wave back. Before he leaves, he takes a wide broom and sweeps the entire garage. I feel cleansed, liberated, light. It is over. Oh, thank you. I should be watching the time. This is based on a nightmare called Teeth. I spit them out like olive pits, tainted yellow and hard, uprooted from the cave of my cheek, where my tongue fingers empty rooms. I contort my smile to hide the hag I have become. My tongue takes measurements in and out, back and forth. My lids seek light. I open wide, one tooth hanging on the edge of a cliff, another set in a tub of space where it may wobble and lose balance. I panic at the thought. I must bare my teeth in self-defense. I must chomp my way into old age. I smile and open wide and lift my electric toothbrush off its solid base and brush and brush and brush. This is a love poem. This was when John was in skilled nursing and I was still living independently. A love poem. Each night I wheel you to your door with a kiss on your lips. I smile my love at you, generously, I think. You don't know how much I love you, you say. I do, I do. We've formed a ritual of waving goodbye as I retreat slowly down the hall. At first I wave with one hand in the air, and then my arms go wild before I turn the corner, as if struck by a storm or signaling for help. We wave in tandem. You are there and I am here. The nurses now know we wave not for them, but for one another, to have and to hold the love we swore to once and forever. So I'll pause now and be happy to welcome questions or comments or any poets who want to recite. Any question? Yes?
So how are the red chairs?
They're still there. They're still there, and they look better, and they are comfortable, and I've gotten used to them, but they're still pretty big. They haven't shrunk, but you get used to something, and they brighten up the place. So I still like the color red. Yes, in the back. Could you stand up so everybody can hear?
My name is Gina. I'm 45. I actually got to meet you and John a couple of years ago with Dean Slaughter, and I want to say how grateful I am as a 45-year-old woman for women like you and for men like your husband John who decided to admit women to tough. So just thank you for being you. And I actually have a picture of myself with you and John in the red chair, so I feel very Thank you, Madeleine. Thank you.
I'm glad I described them accurately. Thank you so much. That's a lovely memory. Yeah. Yeah, we had a lot in common. We just, those of you who've known the family for years know that he was a special person. When we got married, John came to Vermont, crossed the river. He realized that every time I crossed the river, I got heart palpitations in New Hampshire. So it was hard for us to move together to Kendall, though I never tried to talk him into coming into Vermont, and you just have to trust me on that. But he knew that as a former governor, I couldn't take root here. No, I'm not here. I'm in Vermont. I forgot where the line is drawn, but Vermont and New Hampshire do have a lot in common. One thing that's different is from New Hampshire, you get a great view of Vermont. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
As someone who is dealing with the 80s, reading the first few chapters of your book just made the whole idea of getting old so much easier. And I'm very grateful to you. And I laughed so hard with some of your, like the downsizing, which I haven't had to do yet, but so many of the comments that you made, just saying, there's somebody like me. There's somebody, I think I can survive this. And I thank you.
But I thank you for picking up on that. And, it is not easy, of course, but it's not easy getting old. You discover something new all the time that you didn't know even existed. Like now my hand shakes, and so I have a harder time writing. I never thought that would happen. But then there's still joy. I mean, there's still new discoveries, new ideas, new people, new sensations. And, this is not a how-to book, so I'm hesitant to give advice. It's just a book on reflections. If I knew how to it would be a bestseller. But this book is actually doing very well. It was listed by Kirkus Reviews, which is a national book review organization, as one of the best books of 2018. So, thank you. Thank you. Any other? Well, yes, a hand by the post.
I'd also like to thank you for something that you graciously did in 1988 when you were governor. I was in charge of organizing a conference for children with learning disabilities at Landmark College, and somehow or other the communication went awry, and you agreed to come, but you didn't know until that morning that you were to address the children and not the professionals. But you graciously did address the children and were able to speak to them about your experience when you first came to this country not knowing English. And you saved the day for me, and I want to thank you. It was a very special day, a special memory. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I couldn't speak English when I arrived, but as a child you learn it very quickly. And I don't know how much to say about that, but you know, sometimes people ask me, how did you get into politics and why do you still believe in the system? And I think the immigrant experience, you know, my mother, I was born in Switzerland, which was not overrun by Hitler, but in 1940, Switzerland was surrounded by countries who were occupied by the Nazis. So my mother was anxious that we might not make it being Jewish, and took us to America. And my mother's favorite phrase was, anything is possible in America, which sounds cliched now, but we truly believed it. And I still believe it, despite the fact that it's harder, and of course, it's easier to come from Europe than it is from Latin America or Asia. But that sense of patriotism and sense of gratitude made me believe in the political system, and I still do, even though there are ups and downs, and even sometimes frightening events. And I won't go further on that because I think you all know what I'm talking about. I have a last poem, if you want to hear. It's not really a poem, it's a speech that I gave at the Women's March in Montpelier sometime, you know, on January 21st, when there were marches all over the country and even all over the world. The following is the speech I gave at the march in Montpelier. I'll start here. Hello, everybody, sisters and brothers. What a beautiful sight you are. It's like spring has arrived in Vermont and thousands of flowers. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
That's a very discreet microphone. It was a beautiful sight because people were wearing different colored parkas, and it was a cold but sunny day. What a beautiful sight you are. It's like spring has arrived in Vermont, and thousands of flowers are blooming in front of the State House. We are not alone in our fear. We are not alone in our despair. We are not alone in our grief for what might have been. We are together in our strength, together in our power, and together we march. Why do we march? We march for respect. We march for equal pay. We march for the right to control our bodies. We march for a livable planet. We march for the end of violence against women. We march for health care for all. We march for public education. We march for the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And who are we? We are brown, black, yellow, and white. We are gay, straight, transgender, and queer. We are wives, mothers, grandmothers, singles, sisters, daughters, and lovers. We are teachers, students, professors, waitresses, sales clerks, bartenders, nurses, doctors, artists, lawyers, farmers, factory workers, cooks, and caregivers, and we are immigrants. We are here to pledge to be our sisters and brothers' keepers. We are here because women's rights are human rights, and human rights are women's rights all over the world. Can we do this? Will we make a difference? Have we got the power? The pendulum has swung so fast from Obama to Trump that we are experiencing whiplash. I assure you it will swing back again when we push hard. We have a rock to stand on. It is called democracy. It is called the Constitution. The center will hold, but only if we are vigilant, only if we use our voices and our feet. We must demonstrate that there is another America, an America that looks like us, that thinks like us, that believes in the America we believe in. It is we who make America. It is we who make America great. We are the makers, the doers, the dreamers. We are the citizens who have the power of the vote. In the next 4 years, we will be heard, not only in this place at this time, but throughout the land, in towns and cities, and in our nation's capital, and all over the world where people are marching with us. We pledge not to be silent. We pledge not to be interrupted. We pledge not to be sidelined. We pledge not to be stopped. We pledge not to be afraid. And we pledge not to lose hope. We must keep hope alive. I will read the first stanza of a poem called Hope by Emily Dickinson. Hope is a thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. Thank you. Thank you.